Just when the world thought the fighting was slowing down, the US-Iran conflict has erupted again. And this time, the battlefield is not just about missiles. It is about cutting off strategic supply routes. One of the biggest targets, a crucial railway bridge sitting on the overland route that links Iran into the China-Russia logistics map. According to Axios and Iranian media reports, the United States struck a railway bridge near Ankara in Iran's Golestan province using cruise missiles in the early hours of today. The reports have not been independently confirmed, but if accurate, they mark a turning point in what this war is actually about. If the location is confirmed, this is not just another bridge. It sits on the railway route toward the Inche-Barun border crossing with Turkmenistan, part of the China-Turkmenistan-Iran rail corridor, a trade and logistics artery that has become increasingly important for both Beijing and Moscow. The route sits inside China's Belt and Road push and the broader map of Eurasian connectivity, and analysts say it has become one of Iran's alternatives for keeping goods moving as maritime routes come under pressure. The corridor's strategic value has surged in recent months. Iranian and regional reports say Russia has used the route for cargo shipments, while Fairs claims China-Iran rail traffic jumped as pressure mounted on Iran's ports. In other words, this railway has become an alternative economic lifeline linking China, Russia, and Iran, a land bridge that no navy can blockade. That is precisely what makes it valuable to the three countries, and why the reported strike instantly became more than a local infrastructure story. The strike, if confirmed, would not only damage infrastructure, it would hit a route sitting inside the growing economic and logistical cooperation among the three countries. And it fits a pattern. Earlier in the conflict, Iranian reports said other rail points, roads, and bridges were hit, with some restored quickly enough for traffic to resume. The message is clear. This conflict is no longer confined to military bases and missile sites. It is increasingly targeting the infrastructure that keeps trade, logistics, and strategic partnerships alive, raising the stakes far beyond the battlefield. All of this is unfolding alongside a ferocious military exchange. In a major show of retaliation, Iran says it unleashed a barrage of missiles and drones toward US military installations in Bahrain and Kuwait, responding to a fresh wave of American airstrikes deep inside Iranian territory on the second day of renewed hostilities. And Tehran issued a stark warning, declaring the attacks were only the beginning. Iranian officials said every American military base across the region could become a target if Washington continues its campaign, raising fears the confrontation could rapidly expand into a much wider regional war. According to statements carried by Iranian state broadcaster IRIB and Press TV, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched the operation jointly through its Navy and Aerospace Force. The IRGC said missiles and drones were aimed at US-linked sites, including Arifjan and Ali Al Salem in Kuwait, along with Jufair and Sheikh Issa in Bahrain, describing the operation as the first phase of retaliatory punitive measures, and accusing Washington of violating previous agreements. Iranian media further reported a total of 85 US military facilities targeted, including Salman Port and the headquarters of the Fifth Fleet, and an IRGC spokesperson claimed air defenses downed a US MQ-9 drone over Bushehr province. None of these claims has been independently verified. What is confirmed is that Bahrain's Interior Ministry urged residents to seek shelter as sirens sounded across the country. The retaliation followed a large-scale US operation overnight. According to US Central Command, American forces struck more than 80 Iranian targets in response to Iran's alleged attacks on commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM said the operation targeted air defense systems, command and control centers, coastal radar sites, anti-ship missile batteries, and more than 60 IRGC fast boats operating in and around the waterway, with the stated objective of reducing Iran's ability to threaten international shipping. And the scale kept growing. US media reports said around 90 American strikes hit targets across northern and southern Iran, while Iranian media reported explosions in locations stretching from Bandar Abbas, Sirik, and Jask to Chabahar, Ankara in the north, and Abu Musa Island in the Persian Gulf. The geography, if all these reports hold, tells its own story. This was not a pinpoint operation against one facility. It was a campaign spread across the length of the country, from the Caspian corridor in the north to the Gulf Islands in the south. The strikes also brought a human cost. Iranian reports said at least 2 people were killed, including a firefighter at Iran Shah Airport and another infrastructure worker in the wider southeastern strike zone. Local and Iranian reports claimed damage around port and airport infrastructure, including a maritime traffic control tower and warehouse facilities, while parts of Chabahar were left without electricity. These accounts have not been independently verified, but they underline a hard reality of this phase of the war. When strikes move from missile sites to ports, airports, and rail corridors, the people who keep that infrastructure running are the ones standing next to the blast. Firefighters responding to burning docks, technicians in control towers, weather station employees on an airport tarmac. Each expansion of the target list widens the circle of people caught inside it, and each name adds pressure on Tehran to answer in kind, feeding the very cycle both sides claim they want to end. Defending the operation, President Donald Trump said it was carried out in response to what Washington described as Iranian attacks on commercial vessels earlier in the week, and he warned that the United States would escalate further if similar incidents continued. It was a clear message that Washington is prepared for a prolonged confrontation, and it leaves the two sides locked in mirrored logic, each promising that the next blow depends entirely on the other's behavior, each unwilling to be the first to stand down. The diplomatic track has not formally died. The memorandum may still exist on paper for the mediators, but Washington is now speaking as if the pause has collapsed, even as the negotiators who built the ceasefire remain in place. But with every round of strikes, the deal they produced looks less like a pause that failed and more like a casualty of the war it was meant to prevent. Which brings us to the question hanging over the reported bridge strike. What do China and Russia do now? Let us be precise about what has and has not happened. There is no indication that either power is entering this war militarily, and neither has announced any such step. But the corridor that was reportedly hit is their corridor too, a route Beijing folded into the Belt and Road and Moscow has leaned on since last year. Striking, it does not just damage Iranian infrastructure. It hits a corridor tied to the strategy of 2 nuclear powers that have so far stayed on the sidelines, and it tests how much economic pain they will absorb before responding in kind. Through sanctions-proof trade, through weapons transfers, or through pressure in arenas far from the Gulf. Neither Beijing nor Moscow wants this war. Both have repeatedly criticized the US campaign and called for de-escalation, but neither has signaled a military entry into this war, and both have far too much invested in Gulf stability, from energy flows to trade routes, to welcome a wider conflagration. Their most likely response is not soldiers, but strategy. Deeper economic integration with Tehran, faster work on sanctions-resistant corridors, and diplomatic cover at the United Nations. But every strike on the arteries that connect them to Iran pulls them a step closer to the edge of direct involvement. And in a conflict already spiraling through bases, tankers, and now railways, the last thing the world needs is 2 more great powers deciding they can no longer watch from a distance. Subscribe to WLA for daily geopolitical analysis.